Hi everyone, welcome to the 8th People Matter webinar. We're just going to leave it for a minute or so just to let a few other people coming in to come in, and we'll be with you very shortly. Okay, let's kick off. Hello everyone again. Welcome to the 8th People Matter webinar organised by TitanHQ in partnership with the Oxford Cyber Academy. It's been great to see such an interest in today's discussion from around the world, and as usual, it's great to see some regular faces attending, as well as a large number of people new to the People Matter programme. Today's discussion theme is cyber insurance and the power of effective cybersecurity awareness training. And I'm delighted that Maria, AVP, Cyber Underwriter and Risk Management Portfolio Leader at Munich Re Specialty Insurance, has agreed to join us today for what promises to be a fascinating discussion. I'd also like to introduce you to Richard, the Director of Security Studies at the Oxford Cyber Academy, who TitanHQ partnered with for these webinars. And a little bit more from Maria and Richard very shortly. Like all People Matter webinars today, there's no slides. It's just an informal and hopefully an informed chat about security's human factor, such a critical area of business risk that any organisation faces. The discussion today will last between 40 and 50 minutes. And we'll be sending out a recording of today's discussion out to all of you. Please, can I also emphasise, please do get involved in the discussions. We're happy to answer any questions during and at the end of the session. So please send us any questions you might have in the chat box, and we'll try and answer these during the session. Before we start the discussion, I wanted to give you the context for why we set up the People Matter programme. Richard, who spent many years in the corporate security world, and I have worked together in this field for many years now. And we've known for all too long that cyber criminals target people, if not technology. And for just as long, we've been repeating this mantra that a vigilant, cyber risk-aware workforce is our main defence against cyber criminals. Yet it's clear over the years that despite all our efforts, we appear to be struggling to really crack the problem. So Richard and I both believe we need a fresh look. We need new ideas and insight and an evidence base for truly making our people our strongest first and last line of defence against cyber attacks. And that's why we created the People Matter webinar programme. It's designed to bring leaders in business, security and academia together to share their challenges, the lessons learned, and new perspectives on this challenging subject. With regards to today's discussion, for me, it's that word effective cybersecurity awareness in the title that we feel is so important. Any training needs to be effective and measurable. It's not just about how many staff have taken training or responded to phishing simulation. It has to be about developing positive security cultures and strengthening security behaviours, which are increasingly a critical life skill for all of us. So what we hope with these webinars is that in some way we can help to provide guidance, know-how and a trusted network for anyone involved in developing people-centred security cultures and in influencing stronger security behaviours in their organisation. We can all learn from each other, from others critically outside security. And I feel very strongly about that we can learn from other domains outside the security domain, from academia, and critically from the very people we want to educate. For me, it's our employees that often hold the keys to unlocking so many of the challenges and opportunities we face in security culture, awareness, and human risk management. So before introductions from Richard and Maria, a little bit about me very quickly. I'm one of Safe Titan's security behaviour leads at TitanHQ. I've worked in the cybersecurity sector since 2000 for firms like Detica and Axelos Global Best Practice. And for about the last 8 to 10 years, I've focused on advising and guiding organisations, whether that's in the boardroom, with the security team, CISOs, or with HR and learning and development, to help them focus on security behaviours and not just tick box training, and data and analytics-led approaches to security education. I've also worked closely with academia to better understand the behavioural science and the evidence base for what good security education and behaviour change can look like. For me, I think we're still at the start of this journey. The goal is that we all naturally do security as part of our daily lives. And as I've just said, today it's a critical life skill that we all need, whether we're at home, at work, or on the move. So that's me. Richard, would you like to have a quick intro from yourself?
Yes, thanks very much, Nick, and hello to everybody. My name is Richard Nolton. I've worked in corporate security for over 15 years now, and more than half of that's been as a security director in big multinationals. That's been in financial services and also in telecommunications. For the last 4 years, I've been working as Director of Security Studies at the Oxford Cyber Academy, as Nick said, the partner of TitanHQ in this series of webinars. And just to say a word really to follow up on what Nick said about the webinar series, it's for me been a quite extraordinary showcase of the many different approaches that are possible in managing human risk. And we've heard a lot of fascinating descriptions of the latest innovative thinking in the field. But today we've got something new to the series. Now we've got to number 8 in our webinar list. Both as a security practitioner and as an educator, I'm really interested to hear from Maria about the role of insurance as an opportunity for businesses to reduce their risk exposure. But I'm also looking forward to hearing about the new role of insurance as a provider of a wider set of risk management services that can help businesses manage cyber risk in the first place. So at this point, let me hand over to Maria. Maria, please, if you'd like to introduce yourself and then begin talking about the subject.
Absolutely. Thank you, Richard, and thank you for having me. Great to have everyone on the line today. This is a topic I'm very passionate about, so I appreciate being here today. So my name is Maria Long. I am currently serving as a cyber underwriter and a risk management portfolio leader. The last 7 years of my career have been specifically dedicated to addressing the needs of our cyber insureds as it relates to providing holistic cyber risk management services and understanding this crucial element, which is basically the human firewall. So educating and training through awareness and training modules and behavior change tools, so that we can shift the cybersecurity culture within an organization and call everyone to action. I am newer to Munich Re Specialty Group, and in my new role, I am going to be creating a risk management platform that will address these needs. Prior to that, I worked for a specialty insurance company, Allied World, and within that organization, I led their cyber risk management platform, directly engaging with our cyber insureds and really understanding where their gaps are and how we can address their culture so that we can reduce the susceptibility to instances of ransomware, etc. So very pleased to be here today and excited to answer any questions that may arise at the end of this webinar today.
Great, thanks Maria, thanks Richard. So let's kick off on our discussion. As I say, very informal, but hopefully informed. So first question, Maria, with your background and your, obviously your commitment to the cyber insurance industry. It would be great to start with your overview of the current cyber insurance marketplace and what you see as the critical risks that you're seeing in the market and how these relate to the human factor.
Sure. So the cyber market has been very, very interesting. Cyber insurance has been available for quite some time, well over a decade. And to think about it from its infancy to where we are right now is sometimes just mind-blowing, because when the product came to market so many years ago, I think there wasn't a full understanding of what cyber insurance meant, what it was intended for. There wasn't a lot of interest, and so premiums were extremely low. And that's because we didn't have a good understanding of what the loss profile would look like and where we would experience losses. And so, this continued this way with a keen eye on what losses look like, so that we could understand where we need to move the needle in terms of how to shape coverage and how much premium to charge on various accounts within, a myriad of different industries. And so here now we arrive at this point in time, 2018, 19, and further, where we begin to see this increase in the instance of ransomware. And so with the increase in these frequency and severity events, in about 2021, we entered this severe market correction where we really needed to take a look at the types of coverages that we were providing and place guardrails around those. Also, we needed to severely correct the amount of premium being charged so that, we're ensuring that we're collecting enough so that we can pay out on losses that do occur. So that caused us to revisit, pricing, coverage, and also kind of a bit of risk transfer back to the insured. So increase in retentions, making it a hard market. And I think that we're going to sustain this type of market going forward. We'll probably see some equilibrium at this point. Prices have been quite steep, increasing anywhere from 40% to sometimes 400%, depending on the risk. So, as part of that, we had to think to ourselves with the market correction and also, the fact that we're seeing a lack of capacity in the space because of such high demand, we had to basically demand from prospective insureds best-in-class security controls in order to secure that coverage. And so it's been so interesting to see this sort of cyclical effect that cyber insurance has had on the marketplace and on insureds, because we're asking them to have specific controls. We're asking them to be able to monitor their endpoints. We're asking them to have multi-factor authentication to prevent instances of ransomware. And so we have all these technical controls that we're asking about on what are sort of binary formed applications where we're asking these yes/no questions. But yet what we're seeing is this persistence of ransomware, of course. And so some research that's came out specifically from Stanford University is showing that 90% of events that are occurring, these cyber breaches, are the result of ransomware. And 90% of the instances of ransomware are due to phishing. And so if we're also focused on controls, why aren't we asking questions about the root cause? Because it's not necessarily the controls anymore, it's the people. So my passion is to address the people, provide them with solutions through the insurance policy, but also we need to underwrite to it. We need to understand that the critical controls that we need to be looking at right now are the human firewall.
Fantastic. Any comments on that?
No, I was just going to pick up on a couple of points in reading around the subject before this meeting today. I mean, a figure that really struck me was that the cyber insurance market is estimated to reach $28.5 billion by 2028, going from $7.5 billion only a couple of years ago. So, a 25% compound annual growth is quite extraordinary. And we can all understand the reasons why. Interesting to pick up on another point that I think Nick and I, during these conferences, have always talked about perhaps 90 or even more % of major cyber incidents are caused by the human risk factor. You're validating that for us by what you're saying from the insurance perspective. But presumably for the other 10%, as you said, you are looking at insurance, which is looking specifically at technical controls and processes as well. So we're here today to talk about the human side, but also part of your business is going to be looking at the technical side as well.
Thanks, Richard. It's worth saying in terms of that 90% figure as well, we're talking about human error. For me, it's important to highlight the fact that the vast majority of those incidents that are enabled by human error, it's unwitting mistakes that we're making. Whether we're sitting in the boardroom or on the front line, it is unwitting mistakes. We're not talking about malicious insider activity. Typically, we are just talking about people who are making a mistake, an honest mistake. And I'm sure as we progress during the discussion this afternoon, we'll be talking about the importance of building that positive security culture to educate people in an effective way. Maria, going back to your, you talked about insurers being a force for positive change, and the fact that you feel very strongly that they've had this cyclical effect on cyber maturity. Can you tell us a little bit more about why it's so important that underwriters understand how a cyber insured's security posture can contribute so significantly to their solvency and the likelihood of the number and scale of any incident in their organization?
Absolutely. So addressing this specifically from the human perspective, so maybe more of the cyber culture and how important it is to implement the proper processes as it relates to our people so that we can have business solvency. So I think your question directly relates actually to the culture of an organization. So if you're able to, I think it's important for any change starts from the C-suite down or from the board down. And so it's really important to have the executive level meet and understand that if they don't educate their employees and have the proper, not only controls in place, but the proper culture in place throughout their environment, they are highly susceptible to a cyber attack. And so demonstrating to the C-suite and then communicating that down through all of the silos within the organization, demonstrating the fact that business interruption as it relates to a ransomware event or having your data exfiltrated and encrypted, that's going to impact, again, the reputation of the organization, their ability to do business, and their responsibility to keep data confidential, have that data have integrity, and keep that data available. All of those things contribute to the viability of the business. And so if we're not educating our employees around the role that they play in that, then your organization is at great danger for a cyber attack.
And the work that you and the underwriters are doing, you're saying that would you say that you're becoming more stringent in your demands on the cyber insureds about understanding what sort of cyber training they're doing and making that distinction between compliance-driven tick box training and more sophisticated campaigning and behavior analytics and behavior change training?
Yeah, we're not looking for compliance or checkbox, we're looking for culture. And so the way that we try to understand that, there is a stronger push now. And I will say that that's more recent. I think we were so focused on controls for such a long time, trying to find that magic bullet, but there isn't a magic bullet. This is a holistic issue. So, I think that when we come to a good underwriter will come to the table and be unafraid to ask questions, especially during an underwriting call, about what that program looks like. So what is the frequency that you're training your employees? What is your delivery mechanism? So the delivery mechanism needs to be interactive and engaging. You need to understand your audience. You cannot get in front of your workforce once a year with a PowerPoint and basically tell them what they need to do and without even telling them why. So what we need are training modules. We need them to be frequent. We need them to be specific. And you need to understand different learning styles. So when we're asking questions, we're asking, what type of program are they using? Are these computer-based training modules? Are they presentations? What is the frequency? What is the completion rate within your organization? And do you have a phishing tool? We need to understand whether or not you are providing phishing simulations to the staff. And those are so key, because sometimes sitting in front of a training module and listening to the information is not enough. Actually taking that human action, making a decision on what may be a phishing email, and either understanding that you passed or that you clicked on a phishing email is enough to say, aha, in your head, I don't want to do that again. That didn't feel good, being susceptible to that phishing email, or, oh, great, I passed. So we consider training and awareness being the phishing simulation piece, to be sort of like a 1-2 punch. You are really delivering training that's of quality, that's going to move the needle. Beyond that, we will ask about click rates. So we'll want to understand what % of your staff is susceptible to these phishing simulations. And then beyond that, we want to know if there's follow-up training. So for those who are falling victim, whether you're organizing this data by division or by individual employee, are you following up and providing additional training?
Yeah, no, that's really good to hear, and it's good that you're laying down these sort of more stricter rules on your cyber insureds in that area. You know, through my experience over the last few years, you know, I've often seen organizations, it's as if they're trying to program their people in the same way that they program computers, and expecting people to do the things, you know, when they should be doing it. Now, as you know, it's so much different. I think awareness is just the first step. Providing that knowledge is just the first step. Getting them to do it is another thing. The other thing is around the frequency that you just highlighted, is understanding that people forget things. You know, memories fade for all of us, and you know, typically, you know, there's a lot of academic research in this area. Typically, we tend to forget 90% of what we've learned within a few days. Now that's so hopefully this webinar won't be one of those instances, but it's important that campaigns, that learning is reinforced and refreshed on a regular basis. And we're not talking about long, arduous training. We're talking about very short, highly targeted training to people who need it most. And it's understanding who your higher risk people are and who your highest performing people are, because this is an opportunity to reward and congratulate those people who are performing well. And you know, in many instances, most organizations, you'll find that the vast majority of staff are behaving quite securely. It's important though that I quickly identify who the I was going to say the weakest links there, but that's clearly not what I want to say. But it's how we actually improve the performance of those people who are the regular clickers. Richard, any thoughts on that?
Yes, I should say to the audience an apology, because I got quite a long delay. I'm calling in from Italy, and so there was a bit of disturbance in the ability of I've got to follow the conversation. But I was going to pick up 2 points that Maria made. First of all, tone from the top, the importance of leadership in all of this. That's traditionally been the holy grail for security directors, actually getting their boards to engage in a subject which far too often in the past they regarded as technical and nothing to do with them, when in fact, of course, managing risk is fundamentally what the board should be all about in the first place. Are you finding, Maria, that the board attitudes are changing, I suppose because of the level of the risk?
Yes, absolutely. Because the level of the risk is so high. And I think every time ransomware makes the news, that's when you're getting the board's attention over and over. And it's sad that that's what it takes. This is really, we're in this very reactive environment. And I think that the board knows it's not a matter of if, but when. We need to talk about risk containment, transferring risk, and the board needs to be continually educated about the cyber landscape, which is ever evolving. And that feeds again back into the theme of training and education, whether at the executive level or down to the frontline employee. The reason for frequency is not just because we naturally forget things, it's because this landscape is evolving so quickly. So, you know, when looking for a training solution, you need to be looking for a training solution that's ever evolving and adding new modules that make sense in the current environment.
I think the second point, Nick, if I can just carry on for a moment, something when we were discussing this webinar originally, Maria, that really stuck in my mind. You talked about cyber underwriters as a special breed. And when I thought about it, when you explained what you meant, I could actually see that, because in a real sense, you really have to understand, both from a security context, the particular company that you're evaluating at that moment, but also from the higher level risk management point of view, the impact that a cyber risk event can have, well, at the end of the day, also on the insolvency of the company. A company can fail if it's badly hit by a serious cyber attack. Could you elaborate on that a little bit? Presumably when you went into underwriting, this wasn't something you were thinking about.
So yes, I think our underwriters, our cyber underwriters, so we offer generally not only cyber, but also tech E&O, so any error or omission arising out of the technical failure of a technical tool. So thinking about that and thinking about cyber, we need to understand technical controls, security controls, your overall business solvency. So how have your revenues been doing? What does your employee base look like? Are you acquisitive? Are you looking at the acquisition of different organizations? Are you growing your product organically, or are you, you know, a computer company that's now going to go into the business of selling boats? So we're trying to understand your business strategy. We're trying to understand your information security strategy. We're trying to understand, you know, how things are going in terms of driving your own security culture. And so this combination can become quite complex. And in this market where we need to so carefully underwrite, I think what happens is that results in a lot of questions that we have for the insurers. And so we ask that they be patient with us, because we're trying to look at each and every insured in a completely objective way, because it can be easy to become subjective when you don't totally understand an organization or the risk. And so unlike any other product line, I think that this one requires a lot more follow-up when it comes to underwriting and participation from the insured in order to secure insurance. And we're seeing that participation and cooperation.
Maria, do you see any difference between you know, small and medium-sized businesses and larger enterprises in two areas? One, in terms of the boardroom and their changing perceptions around the importance of cyber insurance and security awareness training, but also in their approaches to you know, buying cyber insurance.
Sure. So it's interesting. I think that several years ago, I would have a different perspective for you, but what we're seeing is small, medium, and large both have a keen eye on cyber risk. We have a lot of first-time cyber buyers actually in the small to mid-sized space still. So I will say that that's definitely a difference. But the key difference is funding. So within a large organization, you'll see a lot more funding generally for cybersecurity initiatives, whether that means training and education or security controls and tools. Within a smaller organization, the issue is that, you know, there's not a dedicated person that's handling this, or it may fall in the lap of someone like the CFO in some instances. So being able to find outside resources is crucial yet expensive. And in those instances, we're seeing these smaller to mid-sized businesses sometimes go outside of the organization to engage with a master service provider or a master security services provider, also known as an MSSP. And that's a vendor that's going to help you to monitor your environment, call your attention to what you should be monitoring, make suggestions about different security tools that should be in place, and then go ahead and help to provide that security and talk to that person internally within the organization. So I think that that creates a degree of separation sometimes. We are seeing more small to mid-sized businesses take it in-house. And so that's a great thing, but then the issue is there that we have basically a cyber risk program that's in its infancy. So that dedicated team is now trying to understand what's going on within the organization, the risks, scope that out, and then cover their vulnerabilities. So I'm seeing a lot of different shifts. I hope that answers the question.
It does, and I can certainly echo that. I'm talking to organisations all the time, every day, small ones, medium-sized, and large, very large enterprise organisations. And you're absolutely right. That one of the biggest differences is when it comes to security awareness within small businesses, it tends to be one part of a much bigger hat that people are wearing in terms of responsibility. And they're really looking for guidance and help from either us directly or through their MSP. That's absolutely true. That they know that there's an issue, they know there's a problem, and that's been one of the significant shifts over the last 3 or 4 years, that there's now a widespread understanding across the marketplace that security awareness training is a critical part of an overall cyber resilience holistic strategy. But within the enterprise organizations, typically they do have teams looking at security awareness. They do have dedicated people. They're employing behavioral scientists to help them. But likewise, they're still having challenges in actually making this critical move away from doing the basics to doing something innovative and different to try and help that. It's that behavior change and measuring and tracking that's really important.
Can I poke in a question there? I was just thinking that when, let's say, a small, medium company approaches you for cyber insurance, Maria, are they expecting that you're going to be quite so involved with them in analysing what they're doing, advising them on how to do better and so on? Do they think they're coming just to buy insurance and suddenly they're confronted with a full set of services as well? Is that a surprise?
I think that, yeah, it can be a surprise, and many insurance organizations do offer sets of pre-breach services, and that's something that you should ask your insurance broker when they go out to market for you. And really back to your original question, Richard, I think that the insurance producers and brokers who are sort of the go-between from the insured and the carrier are helping to prepare insureds when they come to the brokerage for cyber insurance, saying, listen, this is an involved process. You should expect to dedicate X amount of time to the application process. And you should expect that they're going to ask you to implement certain security controls to get insurance at all. So I think they're sort of prepped. And then throughout the process, back to our insurance industry creating this cyclical effect, I will tell you that the differences that we're seeing from even last year to this year in the insurance application and the different controls that are now in place is amazing. We're seeing best-in-class controls more often than not, and where we're not, we're providing feedback, and those need to be put in place in order to go ahead and get insurance.
And what are you seeing in terms of the increasing maturity of cyber awareness training? Maria, is that happening?
It is definitely happening, and we're able to glean that information because we're asking about it. We understand that that is one of the key elements to cybersecurity maturity, and I think that it speaks volumes. The reason that we're asking about it is because we feel that it speaks to, again, the culture. So if it's not in place, we're thinking to ourselves, okay, there's a greater piece missing here. It's a signal that the organization may not be invested. And so I would urge organizations that do feel they're invested, that are not providing this solution, to find a solution for this, because it will turn your organization into being a red flag to being an insurable risk in many circumstances.
Yeah. So leading on to that, what does good look like for you in terms of the relationship between cyber insurance and security awareness training? Where would you like to see that go in the next few years?
So I would like to be able to gather more both qualitative and quantitative information about cyber security awareness training, because as an underwriter, we're looking to have a deeper understanding. So I think that different awareness tools need to make sure that not only are they offering a multitude of different types of security training modules And not only are they being delivered frequently, but on the other side, there should be a learning management system that's able to capture behavior analytics. So we would want to understand as underwriters, what divisions within the organization that we find are most, we want to know within the different organizations, which divisions are most susceptible to things like phishing. We want to know that there is additional training happening after that. So we want to see a change in behavior, and several different learning management systems will provide behavior analytics over time. I think that's something that we're going to want to look to understand. So what's your benchmark? Where did you start and where are you going?
And I think, again, from my experience, more and more organizations are realizing that, one, there is no silver bullet when it comes to training, that it does need to be multi-format. The gamification is not the answer. It helps, but is part of an overall training strategy. And that frequency is so important as well, as you say, to keep up to date with some of the latest threats. That ability to report behavior analytics and to use that to actually adapt and to identify who your higher risk users are is absolutely critical. And it's this realization, I think, that organizations are coming to, that they don't need to train all their people all of the training. It's very much about targeting to make maximum gain from the investment that they're making.
I was going to say, at a more granular level, as your data sets develop, Maria, you're also going to be in a good position to say what works and what doesn't work when it comes to specific methods of teaching and so on. Is there anything you could say about that? I mean, Nick and I have a particular fixation on the importance, for example, of storytelling in education around cyber and in other areas as well. Is that something you're seeing as you look at the work that companies are doing?
Yes, so I think I agree with you, Richard. Storytelling is key. It is the absolute key to grabbing the attention of the end user and carrying them through what they need to be looking for, what role they play, and why. So I completely agree with you. In terms of what I'm seeing, so of course we're seeing a lot of interactive training that really helps. And another interesting thing that I've been seeing is training that has, it actually puts the end user in the shoes of the hacker. So it sort of motivates them to pay close attention to what's going on, because we feel as though we're getting this look behind the curtain as to what a bad actor would do. So I think kind of inciting emotion is extremely important, and storytelling, and we're seeing that more and more. And then the other key item is keeping it short. So we don't need a 15-minute module. We need anywhere between, I think, 4 to 7 minutes is key. We don't want to tie up our end users. We want to get them the information that's critical, and yes, tell it in a storytelling fashion. And we're seeing it more and more.
As Richard said, we've been talking about this for years. Stories, for me, that's the way you get that emotional connection to training. Often training is that, I'm being told to do training by my organization, and it's okay. And then we know people just get to the end and try and get back to their day job as quickly as possible. But turning that into a story, making it relevant to them, we all, I would suggest, we've all either been victims of an attack or certainly know someone that's been a victim of an attack. And we should feel, because of that, we should feel more attuned to the challenges we face and our own ownership of this and accountability for this as well. But sadly, I think that's still lacking. But I think storytelling is absolutely critical in the way in which we help that engagement model with our people and build that trust and give people the confidence to talk about some of these things. I think one of the big problems is that people are scared to share their stories with people and with their own organizations because they think they might be a little bit ignorant or about the thing, and they think it's deeply technical and something they don't really understand, where all we're talking about here really is it's criminals actually tapping into our behaviors, and they understand behaviors better than we do in many instances.
Absolutely. And I think to add to that too, just thinking about it's basically about getting buy-in. So you have to tell a story and you have to connect. Basically, you have to connect the employee's purpose and the why back to what you're training them around. And a really great way that I've seen this done too is to provide training to families as well. So to make that training available, not just to the employees, but their family, especially in this remote environment where we are sort of many of us are still sort of working in front of our families. Many of us have gone through the challenge of educating our children at home. And so they're always connected to something. And so teaching them good cyber hygiene is a huge motivator. And when your organization offers you training that's also applicable and available to your family, I think an employee says, wow, I have a great organization that cares about my family, and then they buy in even more.
Thank you for that. That's really important.
I've had two discussions, one today, one yesterday, one with a large US company, one with a medium-sized UK company, and both the guys I was talking to, one was a CISO, one was a head of security, and when I started talking about the power of educating your staff about looking after their own or their family's information, they were absolutely saying that's exactly what we want. That's that's where you get that engagement, that sense of real value and sort of ownership with people as well, and understanding, as you say, Maria, that the why am I getting this training? Well, there's an obvious reason that there's some real value in providing that.
Right, absolutely. So what power does it give you? Because I think at the end of the day, you have to call your employees to action, and you do that by giving them the power, by letting them know that they're a valuable security asset and that they're an individual contributor to the greater good and the solvency of this company. And so I think that's the way we do it. Everyone is a chief information security officer.
And then coming back to the leadership team as well, I think they've got a duty to highlight to the whole organization, the workforce, the importance that they attach to being cyber savvy and digital intelligence, digital skills, and highlighting as well and being open enough to say that we're as vulnerable as anyone else. I had a talk with a close friend of mine a couple of weeks ago who said that they would, he's a chief exec, and his company had just suffered a whaling attack and has lost nearly £500,000 as a result of, it was human error, but it was a lack of internal processes as well. And it's truly shocking because he was telling me this story, and there were so many times in that story, and this again, the power of storytelling. This is a story, it's a real life story with real pain. There were so many times in that story where why didn't they do that? It seems so obvious to us on the outside, but in the heat of the moment, when the attackers know which buttons to press at which times with people, it's very, very difficult. The bottom line behind all of that is that it just required someone to talk personally to a colleague within the organization where it was all done online, and the attackers were intervening in those messages as well because they had access to the system at the same time. But Richard, any other comments on this?
Well, I was thinking in a rather more general sense about the impact that cyber insurance is having, particularly in the United States, where you've gone a different route. You've not gone the legislation route, whereas we in the European Union, where I am, or in the UK, have tried to legislate to make companies improve. You being perhaps more liberal society in that sense, have chosen to let companies find their own level. And it's interesting that obviously the very positive impact you're having.
Yes, I appreciate that. And I think that you'll see the environment change in the US. We're seeing drafts and indications of legislation around this. But what I will say is that I think that cyber insurance has set the pace in the US market with our insureds, helping to set them up so that if there is legislation around this, when there is legislation around this, our insureds will be ready.
So final question, Maria. I think to a degree you've answered all this. What advice do you have for those organisations who don't currently do any training or are continuing to rely on annual sort of compliance-driven training?
So my suggestion, there are so many resources out there. I think that it's important first to, if you do have cyber insurance, you need to go to your insurance broker and ask if your carrier provides complimentary training. They may provide that at no additional cost or at a discount. So that's a great starting point, because that means that you've had your insurance organization go out there and actually vet a vendor. So determine that they're appropriate and are able to provide quality training to your staff. And then on top of that, maybe it's complimentary, maybe it's provided at no additional, at a discount. Then what I would recommend doing, if that's not a solution, definitely I would say you're going to want to, you can take to the market and look and see what's out there, but I would recommend that while you're looking for solutions, you look for computer-based training modules that are shortened in duration, that are interactive, and that contain a learning management system. And I think in terms of pricing, you can expect to see something in terms of pricing. It could be by seat or it could be a flat fee. So those are things to consider. But I would highly recommend, if not demand, if I could, that if you do go for a training solution, you make sure that phishing simulations are included with that as well, because it's really necessary and the two inform each other.
Yeah, agreed. Richard, any final comments?
I don't think so. It's been very interesting to hear how cyber insurance has developed really over the last 5-6 years, as Maria was saying, into something which is having a very positive driver effect on improving standards. And I think I hadn't appreciated before this seminar the extent to which actually cyber underwriters, cyber insurance companies more generally are operating a whole series of services which not only, in a sense, direct the activities that ordinary companies should be taking, but actually set the standards which they have to reach if they want to get the insurance. I mean, this can only be positive, it seems to me.
I agree, and certainly my experience and understanding of the UK cyber insurance marketplace, that's the direction that many of the leading UK cyber insurance companies are going as well. It's that now that they're getting more data, more understanding of the claims that they've had, and understanding about the risks that their organisations are facing, they're getting much more intelligent in asking the right questions, and that clearly includes this whole area around the human factor as well, because as we've said, 90% of all incidents ultimately are caused by human error. Okay, so that's fantastic. Thank you, Maria. Thanks, Richard. I'd like to sum up. I'd like to thank all of you for attending the session today. I hope you've enjoyed it. We'd love to get your feedback. Richard and I always say on these sessions, please do let us know how you think we can improve on these, ideas for future discussions, potential speakers, etc., etc. Please do contact me if you want to share your thoughts and ideas on that. We will be sending you a copy of the recording from today's session. If you'd like to receive recordings from previous People Matter webinars, and speakers, for example, have included those responsible for security awareness training at Standard Chartered Bank, at Microsoft, at NatWest Bank, Willis Towers Watson, and one of the leading global behavioural scientists in this area from the University of Cardiff. If you'd like to receive some of those recordings from previous webinars, please do let us know. One little and quick word about SafeTitan. Our approach at SafeTitan is to enable organisations to influence stronger security behaviours across their workforce. And this for us means automating their security awareness training, making it quick and easy to develop, manage and track awareness training and phishing simulation campaigns, being able to simply personalise and target campaigns to suit your very specific organisational requirements, as well as specific individuals, teams, offices and countries if required. It also means providing the detailed human risk behaviour and compliance analytics reporting tools that are needed, that we've discussed already, which you need to measure and report behaviour change, adapt and evolve your own campaigns, and then to track and report on the effectiveness of the campaigns that you've delivered. We'd love to show you more. So if you're interested, please do contact me if you want to see the Safe Titan platform in action. We'd love to show more of that to you. We will be continuing our People Matter program in the near future, and we'll let you know more details as soon as the next webinar is finalised. It should probably now be held in September or October. Last but definitely not least, I'd like to say a massive thank you to you, Maria and Richard, for your contribution to our discussion today. For me, Maria, what's been fascinating is to hear and to listen to someone that's on the inside of the cyber insurance market, clearly understands the real need to ensure organisations are provided with the right tools to tackle their human error across their organisation and to their overall risk posture. But it's also clear you're passionate about a much more fundamental thing, which is building this positive partnership between the cyber insurer and the cyber insured to make that radical change that we all need in human cyber risk management over the next few years. Richard, nothing else for me to say, but as always, many thanks for your ideas and your comments and your insight, and I look forward to working with you on the next People Matter webinar. So, final thing, Maria, Richard, have you got any final comments? Any final observations you'd like to make?
I mean, I think as a final comment and summary, I really urge everyone on this call to think about whether or not they have a solution in place for training and awareness, evaluate that solution, see what needs to be done in terms of improving it. And if you don't have one, I urge you to put one into place.
I think I'd just make one comment. I was really pleased to hear Maria talk about using security training that you've got available at home with the family, because we mustn't think of cybersecurity or any kind of security as something we do at work. Cybersecurity is something that affects everybody, whether they're from age 2 to 102, and anything we can do to help and support each other to improve standards is really, really important. So, yeah, we've all complained about being stuck in the kitchen with kids running around. They're on their computers, we're on ours. There will be elements that we can be teaching each other about that are really important. So let's do that, and let's do it well.
Totally agree, Richard. And just to end on that, and another little story, I was speaking to another organisation today, and the guy was talking about his father-in-law, who's 95 years old, and that he saw him last night, and his father-in-law said to him, "Could you have a look at this email? I think it's suspicious. I think it's a scam." And that was so refreshing to hear and great to hear. And that sort of sadly gave me an idea of what I might be doing in 30 years' time. But that's great. It's great that you know, and long may sort of the older people get more, as you say. It's a life skill that we all need to learn, whether you're very small, very young, or moving into your later years. Thanks again, Maria. Thanks again, Richard. I hope you've enjoyed it, everyone. We look forward to seeing you on the next People Matter webinar. If you do have any comments, please do contact me, and we look forward to talking to you again soon. Many thanks.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Maria. Thanks, Richard.